Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here with the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook on Friday the 8th of November. All looking a very familiar pattern. It's staying cold as we go through the weekend, throughout next week, and maybe even onwards into next weekend, most likely, looking at the latest forecast models. Further snowfalls then as various fronts trail in from the Atlantic without really lifting the temperatures, and those freezing levels will stay down between around 600 and 800 metres much of the time. We'll start off with a look at temperatures, and this is the familiar 850 millibar chart. If you watch the videos regularly, you'll know what we're talking about. It's the height in the atmosphere that corresponds at this stage to around 1300 metres, so a good fit for the highest tops in Scotland. And the values shown here as we start Saturday morning showing around -6, and the observations that have been recorded on Cairngorm Summit even through today, Friday, have had the values in the -5 to -6 range, so we can be pretty confident that this story is accurate off the forecast model. Basically then, we've got a low pressure system dragging its way southwards. The wind turns around back to the northeasterly again. It maintains the very cold air mass in place across Scotland through into Sunday, and it stays cold everywhere, it must be said. Temperatures widely below freezing across all the UK mountains. Hard frost as well in many of the valleys and the glens. Now, we may just see a brief lift of temperature and freezing level as we go into Monday, but really only temporary, and I suspect the higher mountains do stay sub-zero throughout, just as fronts move their way through. The freezing level will drop again as we go through Monday and onwards into Tuesday. At this stage it comes in, temporarily at least, as a northwesterly change of wind direction, but it doesn't do very much for lifting those temperatures. The general air mass coming towards us stays cold. This then just skipping on over a few days toward the middle and later part of the week, and as you can see, the values staying sub-zero. This would correspond again between 1200 and 1300 metres. You're looking at a value -3 or -4 to end the week. So the mountains staying very much in winter mode, with snow cover, increasing amounts of snow cover across most of the UK tops. Saturday's chart looks like this, a fair day for many places. We've got a front that's trailing in across western regions, the far western and southwestern extremities of Scotland, a bit more extensive across Wales, where it'll be a pretty poor day with sleet and snow on and off over a good many hours, pretty persistent it must be said. That trying to fringe towards the Pennines and the Lake Districts, at the leading side of that, producing some sleet and snow above, well, 300-400 metres, maybe even temporarily lower across the Pennines. That's a similar sort of height that you'll find the snow across the Welsh hills too, so very much down to low levels. Away from that, it's a fair day with sunshine across a good part of the Highlands. Bear in mind the wind chill, which the wind speeds will vary a bit through the day, but where you get the strongest winds with a temperature even at 0 Celsius, 20-30 miles per hour, starts to tip that wind chill down to -10 or below. Into Sunday, and it looks a fair day for most places. Maybe one or two residual snow flurries, some banks of low cloud and pockets of low-level fog could just be around, with slight high pressure just extending in. Light winds, terrain widely frozen, a cold but essentially dry day across the mountains. The next frontal system, though, is moving in from the west by Sunday night. That's where we get to by Monday. Those fronts sweeping eastwards then, a further spell of snow could be pretty extensive across many mountains through the overnight hours into Monday, leaving a good covering even to fairly low levels for Monday morning. Showers will follow, and these on the heavy side as the wind does turn west or northwesterly. Some hail, rumble of thunder wouldn't be ruled out in the heavier showers coming in from the west. Strong winds, again, bear in mind the wind chill that will be at -10 or below on the higher summits. Now it becomes fairly messy again into the middle of the week. Low pressure more or less in charge. The detail is going to be elusive. It's still, though, drawing around that air mass from the northwest across the British Isles. There'll be areas of showers, there'll be some longer periods of snow, and that again falling down to pretty low levels. Rain only the lowest slopes and around the coasts. Notice there's another area of low pressure suggested towards the far southwest of the British Isles. That may get into the mix even through the middle of the week. Not quite convinced of the exact positioning of all of those low pressure centres, but the idea that there's a further frontal system trying to threaten from the Atlantic, and that may produce some further snowfalls. Don't get the absolute detail at this stage from a chart like this, but fair enough to say that low pressure and some further snow on the mountains is believable. The basic theme stays cold. taking things towards the end of the week, and it looks as though eventually one of these next low pressure centres will drag its way further southeastwards. Some further falls of snow, rain at lower levels across England and Wales in particular, but it's a generally cold air mass. You wouldn't rule out the snow falling to lower slopes for periods at least through the later part of the week, and then things turn back northeasterly once again as that low pulls southwards. Pressure builds a little bit more toward the north and northwest, which has been a common theme in that sort of forecast range later next week, that things would become essentially drier across much of western and northwestern Britain, with the low moving towards the central parts of Europe basically by that time. Whatever the absolute detail, it looks as though the cold pattern will prevail, the wind more likely coming in from a northeasterly direction, some snow in the form of flurries or perhaps something more persistent across eastern hills, with the western mountains driest of all. So quite a convincing early spell of winter weather across most of the British mountains, and that story will be ongoing over the next 10 days. Stay up to date with your local forecast and stay safe if you're out on the mountains in the wintry conditions. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.